Madonna hasn't said much about Confessions II, choosing mostly to let the music do the talking. Appearances have been plentiful, but explanation or dissection has been rare. Surprising given how personal and retrospective this album feels. Her eponymous debut arrived 43 years ago this summer, and on Confessions II we come full circle as she takes us back to where it all started, a Danceteria. The most striking thing on first listen is how far back she's looking, not just to 1983, but to almost everything that came after. Familiar glimmers of her earlier work are sprinkled throughout, and every time one surfaces in a transition, a guitar part, a bass line, a vocal, or a lyric, it works like an invisible string, wrapping itself around you and pulling you a little closer into the party. The nods aren't only to her own catalog, there are deeply satisfying gestures toward classic disco and turn of the millennium Ibiza anthems and modern pop scattered throughout the record. Confessions II is a pastiche of the best in the lineage of dance music, and on top of it sits the story of a woman who came from nowhere to become one of the greatest artists of the modern age. What Madonna is telling us, I am dance music and dance music is me. I was there, I saw it all. I've lived a full life, a hard one at times. I've suffered, I've known joy, and the music was the constant. On her debut single, she threw out an open invitation to get up and dance. 43 years later, the invitation comes again, this time to meet her on the dance floor. And it would be rude not to join her, wouldn't it? The album opens in the shadows. Before a note of melody arrives, Madonna speaks, a confession about hiding, about inventing personas, about becoming whoever she wants to be, about wishing that she could be like other people and simply not care. And then the line that gives the track and the album their thesis. She admits trust has never come easily, that she never knows why people like her and that this is why she dances. Safety in numbers. That's the mission statement, and everything else on the album answers to it. Musically, it's a dark, moody, pulsating opening, minor key strings adding mystery to a driving, atmospheric build. This is my favorite of the pre-released singles for exactly this reason. It's the bridge between Confessions and Confessions II, taking us by the hand and letting us believe we're getting a by-the-numbers sequel while sounding nothing like anything on the original album. The original was all perfectly synthesized hooks, every song built to be a radio smash. Confessions II is not that. It's something more curious and far more interesting, packed with references to classic house and Lil Louis' French Kiss, and to Madonna's own catalog in Future Lovers. It's the anticipation of a night out, scored, the mystique of the hours ahead, the soundtrack to the line outside the club in the moments before you pay your entry and open the door. With Good for the Soul, we arrive on the dance floor. The track opens with Madonna declaring that everything begins with consciousness, and the synths modulate upwards like the feeling in the pit of your stomach as you're coming up on the dance floor. The moment the night's promise starts arriving in the bloodstream, and we begin to feel free in a way quotidian life just doesn't allow. We're firing like a rocket into the cosmos as the chorus lands on a relentless, tightly repeating synth line, so compelling it forces the body to move, interrupted by rhythmic violin figures that keep pulling the ear back. We're talking astrology, we're talking acknowledging the divine. It's exactly the conversation you have when you're euphoric and briefly at one with the universe, and the track captures that feeling with unnerving accuracy. Notably, this is one of the few moments on the record that looks forward rather than back. The propulsive beat keeps the night moving as we give into it. One Step Away begins with Madonna interjecting to ask if we're ready as the beat shifts. And the record makes its argument explicit. Anyone who thinks that dance music is superficial has it wrong, she tells us. The dance floor is a threshold, a place where movement replaces language. It's the closest the album comes to stating its philosophy in plain words, and it's delivered over one of the most impressive production moments on the album. The refrain is pulsating and repetitive in the best sense, and it's a pleasure to hear her singing in her higher register again. There's a longing in the vocal, like she's welcoming something in, carried by strings so so cinematic they border on the devotional. The rhythm sits somewhere between Four to the Floor and a shuffle, and the whole thing lands squarely in the turn of the millennium Ibiza territory. I'm thinking Toka's Miracle, Groove Jet, that lineage. The same power and yearning, slightly more mechanical and less digitally clean. There's a thread back to Nothing Really Matters here too, that invisible string tightening around us again. And then she poses the question that hangs over the rest of the night. Who are you doing it for? Is it for you? Or is it for them? As we ponder that, we get probably the most radio-ready track on the whole album, Bring Your Love, the duet with Sabrina Carpenter, built over a sample of Inner City's 1988 house classic, Good Life, Detroit's DNA under the most pop moment on the record, with a wink toward Express Yourself in Madonna's own catalog. I wasn't impressed by this song outside the context of the album, but taken as a stop on this night out that Madonna's taking us on, it really comes into focus. And of course there's a duet here because the dance floor is a collaborative place, somewhere we come together, sometimes with the people we'd least expect for some of the most joyous moments of our lives. Consider me converted. Next, she tells us where we are. Danceteria is a song only Madonna could make. The story of the early 80s New York club scene delivered by someone who was actually in the room. And she sounds like she's having genuine fun, letting go in a way that's so lovely to hear at this point in her career. Everybody get up and dance, she commands. Just as she commanded everybody dance and sing, everybody do your thing. And the echo is clearly deliberate. The track's best idea is its portrait of what that scene was before the age of perfection and homogenization. A place where everybody here is a work of art, where being unique wasn't tolerated but celebrated, where it was the entry fee. Paying homage to the scene that made her by name is the album's most personal touch so far, and it gives the record a human edge that defies every lazy trope about dance music as an impersonal form. It's an album highlight and should absolutely be given the full single treatment. The party is properly pumping now, and the album reaches its most global moment. A bilingual collaboration with Fade, the Colombian reggaeton star with Madonna and her guest, trading verses in English and Spanish over a Latin groove, Spanish language material being something of a standard for Madonna, whose Spanish-speaking territories have always gone hard for her. There's a refrain here that reaches back to Let It Will Be from the original Confessions, now dressed in horns. And the track arrives with a story attached. Produced by Madonna, Stuart Price, and Taney, it debuted in Confessions II the film at Tribeca, then landed on the official FIFA World Cup 2026 album's bonus edition in late June, 2 weeks before Madonna co-headlines the first ever halftime show at a World Cup final. And take that in as a piece of the album's larger argument. She isn't just claiming to be dance music's living through line, she's spending the album campaign proving it on the biggest stages on earth. As a song, it's not my favorite on the album, but its job on the night is clear. And then the night takes a turn. Everything is where profound Madonna arrives, and she's furious at a culture sitting indoors on its phones when it could be outside in the world living. And she's not entirely wrong. The beat is filthy, and it captures the manic roller coaster of the world we've built around ourselves. Darker, grimier, forcing the body to move in rapid, contorting ways. There's a Björkian quality to the whole proceeding, which makes a different kind of sense knowing Arca is in the album's production credits, and the strings add a tension and a claustrophobia that drive the point home. Her declaration that I don't fuck with it is aimed squarely at whatever Gen Z audience she might pick up along the way. The callbacks come thick here. Words have no meaning, she reminds us, as she first did on Bedtime Story. And then the guitar part, when the beat drops out before the final refrain, takes us directly back to American life. Blending those two career highlights, each entirely stylistically distinct from the other, is quiet genius, and that's dotted all over this album. A half-time piano arpeggio arrives over the most frantic beat on the album, and just when the track threatens to shake itself apart, Madonna appears in the wreckage to remind us that wherever there's the greatest amount of darkness, that's where you'll find the greatest light. It's worth noticing what the spoken interludes are doing across the record. They arrive in the moments of respite from the most relentless beats, exactly the way the energy modulates on a real dance floor. The breath you catch, the moment you share with a friend or a lover before the next drop pulls you back into the euphoria. After the manic high of everything, Love Sensation arrives a sweet relief. Pure dance pop sensibility, a hook about limitlessness that lodges itself in the mind and won't leave. There's nothing that we cannot do. It's catchy, it's fun, and in the architecture of the night, it's the toilet break track. The one you can afford to step away from, although you'll be rushing back before the final chorus. Every great night has one, and no shame attaches to it. Notably, it's also one of the only tracks on the record that quotes nothing and nods to no one. A rare moment where the album stops looking over its shoulder and just simply enjoys itself, which makes the next track's thesis land even harder. On Love Without Words, Madonna proclaims that dance music is exactly that. Love without words, over a driving beat accentuated by fluttering synths and piano chords. Vocally, I feel like it reaches back toward Rebel Heart, and I hear Living for Love in the verses. It's one of the more quirky efforts on the record and genuinely interesting for it. The frantic bridge is a proper moment to lose oneself, and the whole track feels like the album restating One Step Away's philosophy, movement replacing language, as a love song rather than a lecture. Then she tempts us deeper. Come to the club, come into the club of love, dragging us kicking and screaming into the album's second half. Another interlude marks the threshold. This is a club. This is a temple of sweat and surrender. The night is no longer young, and the record knows it. Bizarre opens with a moment of calm before a synth arpeggio cut from the same cloth as How High or Sorry, the closest this album gets sonically to the original Confessions, begins to build and pull us back into the carnal movement of the floor. The chorus is one of the strongest on the record, a genuinely sticky melody about how strange love turns out to be, and it carries some of the darkest lyrical material here. She sings of a movie star with deep blue eyes, and the internet sleuths have already concluded that she means Sean Penn, the subject decades ago of Till Death Do Us Part on Like a Prayer. If they're right, which they probably are, it means she's still metabolizing that marriage in song 37 years later and doing it on a dance record, which tells you something about what she believes dance records can hold. It's the part of the night where someone's crying in the smoking area and the group decision gets made. We're not going home, we're gonna go downstairs to the nearest basement club that plays something a little harder. Let's get out of this reflective spiritual space. Downstairs, in the basement, the air changes. Another interlude greets us at the door, Madonna announcing with a glint that school is in session. And then School delivers the dirtiest, most pulsating track on the record. A whisper-wrapped verse over a grimy, low-ceiling, sweaty beat that stands apart from everything more pop-friendly upstairs. If anything on this album shares DNA with another Divas catalog, it's the murkier backstretch of Britney's Circus. That same late-night, slightly menacing club register. The whispered, pitch-down vocals toward the end are an unmistakable nod to shiny disco balls, and there's a thread back to bedtime stories, I'd Rather Be Your Lover, running through it. Erotica-era Madonna's fingerprints are also all over this room. Sweat is dripping down the walls, it smells awful, but forget all of that. We came to dance. And then, as we're getting properly lost in it, the record produces its most profound interruption. Madonna's voice arrives over the din to tell us that people are wrong to think that life has a beginning and an ending, that energy never dies, that this is only a portal that we're all passing through. And then, quieter, but still, it's hard to let go. Fragile is for her brother Christopher, who died in October 2024, and it's the most personal track here. A soft trip-hop piece with a delicate exposed vocal, closer in spirit to Massive Attack's Unfinished Sympathy than anything else on the record, and that's among the highest compliments available in the dance genre. The production's masterstroke is a heartbeat in the instrumentation that gradually slows to a stop. The album, mid-party, making us feel like a life ending. This is the moment the night out structure reveals what it was for. Every real night reaches the point where the euphoria thins and something more true walks in. The friend you lost, the year you don't talk about, and the album has sequenced its grief exactly there, deep in the basement, long past midnight. A lesser record would have closed with this track or hidden it as a bonus cut. Madonna puts it in the middle of the dancing because that's where grief actually shows up. But the night isn't over for us. My Sins Are My Saviour delivers the most erotica hour of the night. Carnal, unrepentant, the id given a beat. But listen to the words and it's closer to Ray of Light. Madonna admitting she tried to find her way in unfamiliar faces and she looked for love in unfamiliar places. That's the album's trick in a single track. The body of erotica, the soul of Ray of Light, and the title is the confession the whole record is named for. Not sins repented, but sins that did the saving. And with that, we're heading home. By the time Betrayal begins, I feel like we're back on the couch, in the favorite spot, maybe someone's rolling a joint, still buzzing and trying to settle back into a body that spent the night somewhere else. A muted trumpet arrives to tell us the night is winding down, a melancholy piano figure dances around it, and after the euphoria of being lost, the real world reasserts itself, and with it, the people and relationships that were never perfect. The muse here is Joan Ciccone, Madonna's stepmother, whom she's admitted she never accepted growing up and in retrospect was really hard on. But it's the 4 a.m. conversation set to music, the confession you only make to the person next to you on the sofa, when the defenses the dance floor dissolved haven't quite come back up yet. This album understands that the honesty of a night out doesn't end when the music does. It ends when you manage to finally fall asleep. Then the confessions turn generational. The Test is a duet with her daughter, L.E.S, a moody, atmospheric trip-hop piece in which Madonna examines whether her hunger for fame and fortune made her daughter's life harder, with the child in question standing at the next microphone as she asks. It references Little Star, the song she wrote for the infant L.E.S on Ray of Light, which means the 2 tracks now bookend a 28-year conversation between mother and daughter, on record. Lola Leon's voice is genuinely impressive, and the track earns its place by shirking what could so easily have been a Nepo baby anthem in favor of something harder and more honest. The atmosphere on the track is the point. This is the album interrogating its own protagonist and letting the person with the most standing deliver the cross-examination. It's a really beautiful track. And the album ends where the woman began. L.E.S girl, or Lower East Side girl, finds Madonna thinking about being young in New York, hungry and unknown, trying to find fame. There's a Bowie-esque quality to the verses, and the whole thing is sweet, subdued, and delicate, a stark contrast to nearly everything that came before it. It isn't an album highlight for me, but it doesn't need to be. It's the moment we realize it's time to go to sleep on the night behind us, to dream and then wake and take on this thing called life for another day. And it closes the circle the album drew in its first few minutes. The record opened with a woman who can only feel free on a dance floor, and it ends with the girl who walked into Danceteria 4 decades ago to find out who she was. Every night ends, and every record eventually has to be heard in daylight. So, curtains open and kettle on. What journey did Confessions 2 actually take us on last night? Well, for a start, we heard Stuart Price. It's no accident that the sequel title feels earned rather than opportunistic. Price co-wrote and produced the original Confessions on a Dance Floor, and having him back in the room is the single biggest reason this album feels like a continuation and not an impersonation. Around him, Madonna brought in additional production from Arca and Parisi, which honestly explains a lot about the darker, more contorted stretches of the night. That Bjorkian pull I kept hearing on everything makes so much more sense once you know who was at the desk. We also heard a homecoming that goes deeper than the music. Confessions 2 arrives on Warner, the label Madonna returned to in 2025 after decades away. The same house that signed her when she was an unknown from the downtown club scene. There's something quite lovely about the woman who closes this record with a song about being young and hungry in New York, delivering it through the company that watched all of it happen. And we heard a philosophy she'd written down before we ever pressed play. While making the album, Madonna and Price put together what they call a manifesto. The dance floor as a ritual space, dancing as something closer to prayer than pastime, the repetition of the bass as a way of dissolving ego and time. Every spoken interlude on this record is the idea said out loud, and that's why the album is sequenced as one continuous mix, just as the original was. The night we've just been on isn't a fanciful reading of this record, it's the shape she built it in. Which brings me to why the verdict needs no caveat. Go back through the night and count the quotes. French kiss and future lovers inside the opener. Nothing really matters behind the yearning of one step away. Detroit's good life tucked underneath the Sabrina duet. Erotica's fingerprints all over the basement. Little Star answered by her own daughter 28 years later. Nearly every track on this record reaches back to an earlier Madonna era or a landmark in the lineage of dance music. And the handful that don't feel deliberate too, as if the album knows exactly when to look over its shoulder and when to simply enjoy the movement and dance. From a lesser artist, this density of self-reference would be a nostalgia grab. From Madonna, it's something only she can actually do. Because no one else alive has this much dance music of their own to quote, and she spent the release fortnight proving the point in the present tense with a World Cup single and a halftime slot at the final. The album claims she is dance music's living through line, and then the campaign went out there and demonstrated it. The sequencing is where the craft really shows. Where the original Confessions sustained its euphoria for 56 unbroken minutes, this album has the nerve to move like an actual night out. The interludes arriving as breath between the relentless stretches, the philosophy only ever spoken in the moments of respite, and the grief placed not at the end where albums usually hide their sad songs, but deep in the middle of the dancing, which is where grief actually turns up. Putting Fragile in the basement mid-party with that heartbeat slowing to a stop is, for my money, the best sequencing decision on any Madonna album. And it's the reason the night out reading of this record holds. She drew the blueprint. I just walked through it. And then there's the title, which I'll admit took me until My Sins Are My Saviour to properly notice. These aren't confessions in the repentant sense. That track says it outright. The sins did the saving. 21 years ago, Confessions on a Dance Floor borrowed the language of the confessional for an album that was mostly a glorious party. This one actually confesses. The brother, the stepmother, the daughter, a marriage she's still turning over 37 years on, and it manages all of it without ever leaving the dance floor. The sequel isn't really to the 2005 album at all. It's the second sitting of a confession she's been making since 1983, and this time she stays in the booth until it's all said. I opened this review by asking whether it's really possible to review an album before it's become a part of your life, and this record has given me my answer. If you spent any of the last 43 years with this woman's music, Confessions 2 arrives already woven into your life. Every callback lands on a memory you already own. That's what I got wrong back in November when I made my speculative video about the album. I had a working title and suspected a retreat, when what she was actually making is the rarest thing in late career pop, a record that looks backwards without ever walking backwards. So let me say plainly what all of this adds up to. This is Madonna's strongest album since the original Confessions, and I'm honestly not certain it hasn't surpassed it. That alone would be an astounding feat for an artist 43 years into her career, but what makes it more impressive still is how she's done it, without sacrificing an inch of herself, her art, or her persona to get there. Plenty of legacy artists have clawed their way back to relevance by chasing the moment, borrowing the sound of the charts, the producers of the season, the shape of whoever's winning. Madonna has done it here by being more completely herself than she's been in 20 years. I said earlier that no one else alive has this much dance music of their own to quote. The deeper truth is that no one else could have made this record at all, not because they lack the catalog, but because they haven't lived it. This album is her. That's the achievement. As for whether it truly surpasses the original, ask me in a year when it's had the chance to become a part of my life. There's a phrase we usually reserve for nights like the one this album throws, and the quiet miracle of Confessions 2 is that, for once, it isn't true. You didn't have to be there, because she's brought the whole night to you, all 43 years of it, waiting behind the play button. If you want to see my full initial first listen reaction to Confessions 2, you'll find that on my Patreon, and the link is in the description below. Check out my deep dives into the Ray of Light and Erotica albums here on the channel. I'll put the links in the description for those as well. Happy Confessions.